Just this morning, the government's announced plans to regulate all letting and management agencies. It says it wants to stop a minority of rogue agents from charging unfair, inflated fees for maintenance, repairs and services. Any changes would apply to charges on rented and owner-occupied houses and flats. We've been reporting on some of these problems. Roger Robinson spoke to us about management charges and rising ground rent demands for a flat in Blythe Court near Birmingham.
It's been a huge strain. Two previous owners of number 7 Blythe Court have also been affected by it, and they felt the need to quickly put it back at auction and sell the property so as not to kind of have to pay that debt. Our viewpoint was actually we need to stop this circle from going around and around and around, and if we can save another family going through what we did, the easiest thing in the world would be to have said, right, let's put this back to auction, but that's not addressing the problem. It needs to end, and it needs to end somewhere, and if it means us going through the stress that we're going through just in order to make things right, then we're willing to do it. But there's also, I'm conscious that there are many other families that I'm sure are going through the same issues and problems that we've had to go through. So, it's about gaining awareness, and anybody that hasn't got a voice in the system needs to have one.
That's Roger Robinson. It seems that the government has listened to those stories, because today there was an announcement that ministers are considering new regulations, and there will now be a 6-week period for interested parties to have their say in an official consultation. Sebastian O'Kelly will be submitting evidence to that. He's from the campaign group, the Leasehold Knowledge Partnership. He was at today's announcement by the Business Minister, Sajid Javid. Sebastian O'Kelly, what kind of problems then will this new regulation be trying to address?
Well, there's billions of pounds of other people's money, the money of leaseholders in the case of managed blocks of flats, which are looked after by people who are under no scrutiny whatsoever. You could literally set up as a property managing agent tomorrow. As Sajid Javid said, you just need to put on a suit and print some business cards, and you could easily be looking after hundreds of thousands of pounds of contingency fund that belongs to other people.
The extraordinary thing is that some of these leases have been set up, or tenancy agreements, giving renters and owner-occupiers who have to pay maintenance charges no legal rights at all over who will manage their property or even do that work. Will the regulations change that?
Well, no, not in itself. I mean, the fundamental problem with leasehold, which is unique to England and Wales, is that you have this third-party landlord, the freeholder. It's he who employs the managing agent. It's he who looks after, ultimately, the service charge monies and the contingency funds. Everywhere else in the world, such as, continental Europe or North America or Australia, the residents themselves employ a professional to look after their money and sack them if they don't do a good job. For some reason, that's regarded as anomalous in the United Kingdom, in England and Wales, and it's completely wrong.
Well, some people in England and Wales do that, don't they? I thought it was a new kind of agreements that have been drawn up with these kind of almost loopholes that are not being spotted, where people's charges are going to be massive in future.
Yes, I mean, there are a few, and Sajid Javid did speak today about improving right to manage, but he was very strong on criticising the leasehold property management business. He referred to cowboys, he referred to people charging for a 5-star service and providing a really budget Rackman-like
It's
service.
become a money spinner, hasn't it?
It is a complete money spinner, and your example of Blythe Court couldn't be a more egregious example of ordinary flat owners just trying to go about their ordinary lives being right royally legged over.
Now, you'll be contributing to this consultation and giving evidence, I know that. What will you be saying?
We'll be saying that the government must now protect these funds. It's ridiculous to try to pretend that self-regulation by these professionals, whether in Armour or RICS, can work. You've just had a Labour minister, Sally Keeble, resign as the regulator of one of these organisations, saying it doesn't work. It really does need government intervention to protect this money. There's a lot of it.
Sebastian O'Kelly, it's a story that we will most definitely be following. Thank you very much for coming on. Now, I asked you when we started the programme about your experience of the highs posted online that can make you feel low. Anna says, I'm really passionate about yoga. I recently trained as a yoga teacher. As someone starting out, the social media accounts of experienced, gorgeous, lithe yogis in advanced postures out of my reach can be very demoralising and frustrating. Jackie says, Christmas Day houses filled with large families, children and grandchildren, friends going going on for days and days. We have 5 in on Christmas Day and then that's it. One texter, I'm trying to wean myself off social media as I find a lot of it just feels like I am inadequate as a mother. Holidays are particularly bad. It's like trees falling in the woods. If you don't post it, did it not happen? I've stopped posting anything personal. And Nick in Guildford says the solution to the problem you're investigating is to only have social media friends who are less successful than you are. Karen on email, what gets me down when I see other people's perfect knitting and crochet projects online. There you are, knitting and crochet envy. Online shopping has meant that more people can find and buy affordable original art to hang at home. People used to think that original art was something we'd always want to see in a real gallery rather than in an online one. But that's not how it's turning out. Online is proving to be a great place for selling less expensive things. There are no reliable figures for the size of the online art market, but it's estimated to account for perhaps 1/10 of all the spending on art in the UK now. Kevin Mosley's been looking into it, starting in the Liverpool suburb of Mossley Hill.
I brought it downstairs.
Uh-huh.
I think it's very sweet.
Well, describe it to us.
And it's a heart, and it's all in pinks and reds.
Beth Parker loves her native Liverpool's art galleries.
Yeah, it's acrylic in a white frame, and it's gorgeous, and it hangs in the bedroom, and it's absolutely lovely, and we love it.
She's bought works by mostly local painters in the past, but you're unlikely to find her in a smart art dealer's shop.
A meadow, and it's lots of greenery, and it's painted as if she couldn't have been lying on the grass.
Her latest enthusiasm caught her eye on Facebook and then the online site artfinder.com.
Very, very pretty, with some little blue cornflowers dotted around, and it's just extremely pleasing, and I really like it. So, yeah, and I must ask her to give me her autograph. I'm sure she's going to be incredibly famous.
Hello.
Nice
to meet you. Oh dear, painty hands, I don't care, that's what you're about, isn't it? Thanks so much. The artist she's talking about, and Beth has 5 pieces of her work, is Lucy Moore, a 30-something part-time bookkeeper who lives at the other end of the M62 in Hull.
So we've just put it back up again.
Oh, so you brought this shed with you?
Yeah, and rebuilt it and just strengthened it to make it.
Lucy specialises in closely observed fields and fauna, with the occasional cityscape.
Like a moonlit meadow, impressionistic, abstract. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't look like much at the minute.
And it's all going rather well.
One of the artists who I converse with quite a lot kept saying, go on Artfinder, go on Artfinder. Within 3 days I got an email back saying, yes, you've been accepted, and within 2 weeks I sold my first piece of artwork to Germany.
What was it?
It was a little abstract Pollock-inspired called Alchemist. And then that seller came back and bought 3 more. And then since that, up to date, now I sold my 300th painting off Artfinder. I think it was on Sunday.
Artfinder.com is one of several online galleries offering thousands of works by artists from all over the world.
I felt that there was an opportunity here to connect all those art lovers out there. More artists could live from making art, and more people would be able to buy and live with art.
Jonas Almgren is the chief executive of Artfinder.com.
So we are selling over 3,000 items every month now, and it's growing very quickly. We are increasing about between 50 and 75% every year. So I think more and more people are realizing that buying art online is not more complicated than buying everything else. We now have 10,000 artists on the platform, and quite a few of them make a lot of money.
They aren't alone. Tap paintings into eBay and it will throw back 250,000 pieces priced anywhere from a tenner to a couple of £1,000.
I like mine to be affordable. My most expensive piece I've sold was 1,200, and a lot of them are just little 20 by 20s that for £45.
Who buys your stuff? Where does it sell?
All over the world, to be honest. It's gone to Japan, America, Australia, France, Germany.
Do you get any returns?
Funny you should just say that. Today, just before you came, I got an email which I am waiting to speak to Artfinder with, because we have a 14-day return period. I think that's the law, and this one is gone 6 days past the return period. by
I mean, that's the thing with online, isn't it? You run, because people will see a photo, think, oh, that looks good, and it's not really until it's in your home. It's not necessarily the same.
Oh no,
good.
To be honest, I'm surprised every time a painting sells.
It's a trend that's been felt in another specialist business, picture framers.
So I'm Vince Henshaw, and I own Abacus Picture Framing in Mythenroyd, which is a small village near Hebden Bridge in West Yorkshire. And what I've noticed over the time I've been here is the nature of the art we're getting in is changing. When I first started, we were framing a lot of family portraits, photographs. More recently, we've been framing a lot of original art and high quality limited edition prints. We've noticed the artists are coming in more often. They're not bringing one piece of work in, they're bringing multiple pieces of work in. Our heritage art in this area is all landscapes, mills, satanic mills, and art of this nature. And we are seeing an increase in the more modern, abstract form of that art.
Hiscox Insurance do an annual report on the value of art in the UK. It's the world's second biggest market. But even they struggle to size online art. Bobby Reid is their art expert.
So we have some data about what is sold at auction, but everything else that's sold privately at a private exhibition, at a dealer.
What about online?
Online you have some data, but some of the online operators don't release all their data about the amount that they sell. And so the biggest place where you can buy art is actually, in terms of volume, is eBay. And that's obviously towards the bottom of the market. And you can get some rough data there. And we try and extrapolate it in our online art report. But really, it's very hazy to know exactly what's being sold and in what quantities.
Is the market changing in any way then?
I think it's evolved at the bottom end of the market. The top end of the market is quite resistant to change. The traditional galleries and how they operate and how the auction houses operate hasn't evolved that much, and that's a surprise for me because everything else has been revolutionised online, and it hasn't quite happened yet in the art market. But certainly at the bottom end, people are buying online, and predominantly through eBay or through one of the aggregating auction sites. What it's done is it's sort of allowed access to a whole load of art and collectibles that you can buy anywhere in the world and have delivered to you.
It's quite an exciting time then, because if people like you and other organisations, and I Look Hard, haven't been able to size it or aren't sizing it, it's, I suppose, indicative there's something boiling there that in a few years may mature.
Yes, and I'd be amazed if it didn't. I mean, I'd be amazed if the online art market doesn't become a really dominant force.
Bobby Reid of Hiscox Insurance, sending that report by Kevin Mosley. This morning, the financial regulator has published its first snapshot of how UK households are faring at a time of weak wage growth and rising inflation. The Financial Conduct Authority surveyed 13,000 people and used the findings to calculate the different stresses and vulnerabilities of different age groups. It's the first time it's ever done that. The BBC's personal finance reporter, Kevin Peachy, was at the FCA's news conference in London this morning. Kevin, let's start with what they found then when they surveyed younger people. What does it reveal about them?
Yes, well, some of the biggest concerns are found among the young, particularly those aged between 25 and 34. They were the most likely of any age to be in financial difficulty. Now, how's that defined? Well, in this survey, it's anyone who's failed to pay bills in 3 of the last 6 months. Nearly half of this age group were renting their home, and only a quarter of them had insurance for their contents. And then you take it down to the 18 to 24-year-olds. Well, a fifth of those had no savings. More than half had debts, particularly student loans. And single parents in this age group were the most likely of all to use high-cost loans, like payday loans.
What about the over 40s?
Well, as you'd imagine, there's more of a focus here on home ownership and paying for retirement. So if you're 45 to 54, there's an above average chance of you having an interest-only mortgage, according to this survey. And that's people in middle age not yet paying off the capital in their home loan. And they have high overdraft and credit card balances as well. Then if we look to the over 55s, they're increasingly relying on their state pension for their retirements, something that's insufficient, according to pension experts. Over 65s, well, they're relying on deals that they don't necessarily get on the internet. They're missing out on those cheaper internet-only deals. But those who are on the web, well, they're more exposed to scams than other people.
Why are they more exposed?
Well, they are not looking on these pages, on these websites, to see whether they're secure. Remember the little padlock in the top corner? That's the thing that they need to look out for. Everybody needs to look out for, and many are missing out.
What do you think this tells us about the financial vulnerability then of the population as a whole?
Well, it's a 200-page report.
You've only had it in your hands for, what, an hour?
I admit I haven't read every word, but
No.
here's the nub of it. As more than 4 million people have missed bills and are in difficulty. Even more are struggling with their finances. And now this is a fairly imprecise category, but more than 25 million people, half the adult population, have finances that are potentially vulnerable if things go wrong or if something goes wrong in their life, and they're more likely to be women than men.
That's extrapolating from the 13,000.
Yes.
Those figures you've come up with.
Yeah.
Kevin Peachy, BBC's personal finance reporter. Thanks so much for that. Well, Gareth Shaw is the money expert at Which. Gareth, as Kevin's just said, there's masses of detail in this report. But what do you think could be done to protect consumers from financial stress? What more could be done?
Well, this is an essential piece of research that the FCA has taken out. It can't effectively regulate markets across financial services unless it really knows what's going on with consumers. So it's good to see that they've done such a deep study to really understand what's going on with people in the UK. And I think we want people to have control of their financial future, and in certain markets the FCA has to have a deeper look at how the people are being protected. Looking at the pension system, for example, one of the stats in there was that only a third of 45 to 54-year-olds have given great thought to their retirement. Now, retiring is one of the biggest financial decisions you'll make. Currently, people find the system too complex. They don't get clear information at an early stage, and it's difficult to compare products. And so with this kind of information that they have on consumers and what they think about at this key part of their life, they then need to go and regulate those markets so they're making it easy for people to make the best decisions for their financial future.
It's the first time the FCA has done this. It says it's shifting the focus now from providers to consumers. Is it doing enough?
Well, certainly this should inform the work that they do in the future. They're on a monthly basis, the FCA is putting out consultations and analyses into different markets. That's very much focused on providers and how those markets operate. But at the heart of all of that is the consumer that goes out and buys these products, that invests and saves their money, that borrows money, and their experiences are vital to a well-functioning market. So this should be the platform or the foundation that the FCA uses to make its regulation decisions in the future.
Gareth Shaw from Which, thank you for coming on.